Thanks for checking out this live. So what I want to talk about today is something that affects everybody and can really trouble people early in their recovery. So these are things that everybody faces, emotions that everybody deals with, but in recovery, especially early in recovery, these specific emotions can compound and really make that journey and that experience very, very difficult. So these emotions, if we can talk about them, understand where they come from, understand what it's about or what these emotions are trying to tell us, and it can be much easier to manage them and survive them and live through them as these emotions kind of take their normal process. So these emotions that everybody experiences, especially early in recovery, feelings of anxiety, feelings of overwhelm, sometimes feelings of depression, sometimes feelings of helplessness or even hopelessness. So these are very natural emotions to feel. So first of all, know that if you're feeling these emotions, it's certainly normal, it's natural, it's to be expected, and also know that they won't stick around forever, especially if you get to understand them a little bit more, find some tools to help process them, then you won't always be struggling with or held down by these strong feelings of overwhelm and this really severe anxiety. Many people, even early in their recovery, they'll face panic attacks and just overwhelming anxiety that prevents them from engaging in things and doing things that they need to for their life and for their recovery journey. So real quickly, I just want to kind of explain where these emotions come from, what they're for. So one thing just to state first is that no emotions are good or bad. Emotions are trying to tell us something. So even the bad emotions that we feel, even that anxiety, even the fear, it's an emotion. It's trying to tell us something. It's trying to relay a message. We get into problems when we try to resist these negative emotions or when we try to avoid negative emotions, because when we do that, all we do is prolong the experience and we prevent that emotion from relaying its message and then flowing through us like it's supposed to. Some people say that emotion, one way to think of it, is energy in motion. So it's a energy, it's a message, and it's supposed to be in motion, and so therefore it's supposed to flow through us. Normally emotions, they only have a shelf life of 60 to 90 seconds if they flow through us, but if we try to hold on to them, that creates problems. If we try to resist them and push them back, that creates tremendous problems. So just know that these emotions that you feel, they're natural, and if you can develop some tools and some understanding to help process them, then they can flow through you more naturally, and you won't have to struggle with them unduly or for such a long period of time. All right, so feeling of overwhelm. When I think of overwhelm, I think of not necessarily having too many things to do. Sometimes we think we're overwhelmed because we have so many things to do. Well, having a lot of things to do, we always have a lot of things to do. There's always a lot of things that we'll have to do in our life or in the future. Overwhelm is an experience, it's an emotion that I feel when I just don't know what to do next. And early in recovery, this is a common challenge for people. They know many different things that they need to do. They know a bunch of changes they need to make. They know all these things, but they don't know, what can I focus on right now? I can't do 500 things at once. I can't do 6 things at once. So what's the one thing that I can do right now? And when you're starting this journey, when you're new in your recovery, having the confidence to know that you're picking the right thing to do right now, that's a huge challenge. So many times we'll take a step or we'll try something or we'll focus our attention on something, but then we feel overwhelmed because we fear that we're focusing on the wrong thing or we're going to make a mistake. We've made tons of mistakes in the past and we're really just tired of it. We're sick of it. We want to make sure that we don't make a mistake now. So this fear that we're going to do the wrong thing is where this sense of overwhelm comes from. It's not knowing what to do next. So ways that we can work through this is, working with a sponsor, following a program, just clearing everything off your plate and focusing on one thing. So maybe get one book that you can follow, not 5 books like I have the problem of piling up 5 books at a time that I want to get through and then I don't get through anything. So just find one thing to focus on. Find one thing to focus on this week. Maybe you want to start a gratitude practice. Maybe you want to start going to a new self-help group. Maybe you want to, whatever it is you're going to try to do, just give yourself some space. Try that one thing for now. And then let it take hold. Let you see some effect from it before you try the next thing. This is a huge thing that I do with clients with recovery coaching, is just helping them focus on, what's the next thing that I can do? What's the next best thing? And what is one thing about my recovery that I can focus on right now? If we try 5 things, then we end up doing nothing. So what's the one thing that I can do that gives them the certainty that they're focusing on the thing that's going to provide the greatest return, and it can really discharge some of that feeling of overwhelm. The next thing, anxiety. So anxiety is anxiety and depression are very closely related. Really, I think of them as the opposite sides of the same coin, which I'll explain. But anxiety is an emotion that we feel when we feel like we are out of control. All right, so we all have basic human needs. We have physiological needs because we're an animal, and then we have basic human needs for authenticity, for connection. We have needs to provide for our survival. So we have needs for employment or a source of income. We have needs for connection with other people. We have needs for relationships. We have needs for food and for taking care of those that we're responsible for. When we feel like our ability to do that is not within our control, but it's in somebody else's control. So if you have a job and you're afraid that you might lose your job because some jerk that you work for, because somebody else's decision is going to determine whether or not you get to keep your job, then your employment, which you need, your source of income, and your ability to provide for yourself and your family, which you need, that whether or not you get to continue that is in somebody else's hands. It's in somebody else's control. And that, knowing that we have a basic need and that we aren't in control of it because our self-esteem is shattered, because of our self-efficacy, because we keep ruminating on the mistakes that we've made in the past, all of these things affect our ability to realize that we do have control or feel like we have that sense of control over the things that we need in our life. So I like to explain it as locus of control. Locus just means like, where's the point that's in control or the thing that's making that decision. So if this is us and the locus of control is within this circle that we have control over everything that we can control, if the locus of control of whether or not your job is going to be maintained or whether or not your health is going to be maintained or your relationships, if that is within you, then you don't have that anxiety because you know that you're in control. If that locus of control moves beyond you and now it's up to somebody else, it's up to fate, it's up to your friend, it's up to somebody else, your partner, your relationship, it's up to your boss, it's up to the community, it's up to the environment, whatever it is, if that locus of control moves beyond you, this is the breeding ground for that anxiety. So ways that we can work through this. So in the moment, when anxiety comes up, in the moment, it's very important to remind us that we do have control over something. If the anxiety sticks for too long, then we just feel completely helpless, like we can't do anything, we can't control anything. So it's really important to remind ourselves that we do have control, at least over something, so we can take control. This is part of the reason that getting up and just doing something. If you're sitting in a room and you're feeling anxious, get up and move to another room. Get up and just move your body. For one, that helps the emotion flow through you, but it also is you demonstrating that you have control over your body and something that you can do in a moment. Another thing that's extremely effective, and this is a mindfulness technique, but it's just taking control of your breath. When we don't think of it, our breath operates autonomously, but we can control it. We can control how deep we breathe in. We can control how long we hold it. We can control how long we exhale. And by doing this, we're reminding ourselves and we are taking control of something. So that will discharge some of that anxiety. Another thing that can really compound that anxiety is continuing to ruminate on certain thoughts. And we continue to have these negative thoughts that affect our anxiety and only fuel it and make it worse. So if we can do anything to distract those thoughts or stop those thoughts for a moment, then that gives us at least a little bit of a break from feeling that anxiety and at least stop that downward spiral. So one thing I highly recommend doing is, it brings the breathing and the concentration together, is do a breathing exercise. It's a 16-second evolution or 16-second breathing exercise, but just focus on your breath. Close your eyes, it can be more effective. And then just focus on your breath and inhale for 4 seconds. Hold it for 4 seconds. Exhale for 4 seconds. Hold that for 4 seconds. And then inhale, and you'll see it just it continues that pattern. And if you can do that, now your mind is occupied because you're counting from 1 to 4. Your mind is occupied because you're trying to remember where you are in the cycle. And in doing so, you're distracting your mind and you are taking control of something. This can be something that works, just in the moment, and it can help you discharge some of that anxiety. So I said anxiety and depression are somewhat related. There's a relationship there. So depression, one way to think of depression is the act of depressing. Many times we get depressed or we experience depression because it's a response to the anxiety that we feel. If the anxiety is building up and it's like a full of steam, it's a pot full of steam and it's going to boil over, then depressing is pushing all those emotions down. So when we do this, when we're depressing, what we're doing is we're disengaging, we're withdrawing ourselves from the environment, from the stressors, from the things that are fueling our anxiety. So what do? We shut ourselves away. We stop engaging in things. We lose our motivation because we don't want to go out there and do things that are going to create more anxiety. Really, this is a way of, it's us trying to govern that anxiety and pull it back. So one way to deal with depression, to deal with anxiety and depression, you can do many similar things. One, getting out and having physical exercise. If you're anxious, think of it as you're working off some of that anxious energy. You're moving your body and you're working off some of that anxious energy. Same thing with depression. So if you're depressing because of the level of anxiety and overwhelm and fear, and your depression is just trying to push that down, well, then lowering that level of anxiety will lessen your need to push it down, lessen those experiences of depression. There's also many effects of physical exercise, just getting out, just doing something, because it helps your body release some of those natural endorphins that can overcome or help combat those depressive feelings. So I hope this helps. I hope this just helps understand. Sometimes just having a little bit of an understanding of what's going on in us makes us realize that it's not wrong. It's just something that's happening. You're not more defective because you're experiencing the anxiety. You're not more helpless because you're experiencing the anxiety. That's absolutely should be expected early in recovery. And here's another point. This is why. Because these are, the anxiety that we feel, two things are going on. The anxiety that we feel is anxiety that we've always felt or always would have experienced had we not had that substance or that behavior that we turn to, aka our addiction, had we not turned to that to deal with that emotion. So when the anxiety comes up, we take a drink, we take a pill, we go and do something, a behavioral addiction. We do this because it's a way to avoid, escape, numb, or ease that sense of anxiety. So early in recovery, we've lost that. We've also lost our sense of control. What we were doing was controlling that anxiety with whatever our addiction was. So realizing that we've lost that sense of control, that ability to control the anxiety with our unhealthy habits and the thing that was destroying our life, but our inability to control it in the moment, we've lost that. So now we have more anxiety because we've lost something that gave us at least a little bit of a sense of control. Certainly unhealthy control, certainly something that we don't want to go back to, but that's a reason that you feel so much anxiety, and that's why it can feel like it's exploding and you feel overwhelmed all the time. So these are just natural processes, things that you'll have to work through, but things that you can work through. And I think by having this understanding, knowing kind of what's going on in your body and kind of in your mind can really help with that. So please share this video with anybody that needs to see it. Please feel free to always reach out if there's anything I can do to provide to you. If anxiety is something that you are really struggling with and you'd like some tools to help deal with it, either in the moment or over the long term to help you move past these feelings of anxiety and overwhelm, then please reach out. I got plenty of tools that I can share with you. Anyway, I hope you're having a great one and you be well. See you in the next video.